Hello, my name is Osmorn, and this is my marathon submission video for Ape Out Warpless. Today we're going to be analyzing my recent PB of 26:42.99. It is 0.09 seconds off of second place, essentially almost a tie. But here we are going to be analyzing my new PB. The main mechanic behind Ape Out primarily is that the entire game is procedurally generated, which means that everything that I'm going to be doing in this run is going to be improvised, it's going to be reacted. Granted, there are certain hard coded obstacles and certain strats that will always appear in the run, but currently we are going to. Currently, we're going to see just me reacting to this seed and seeing how I can make the best of it, avoid as many deaths as possible, and try and make it through all the different enemies in the game as we go along. But I'm just going to play it here, and the timing will start the moment we enter this first level, which is albums. The game has 4 albums total. But again, I have never seen this seed before. Everything you're going to be seeing is me just reacting on the fly to things. This includes the level layout, includes the enemy layouts, the different types of enemies you're going to see when you're going to see them, and even the music itself is actually RNG because depending on what the character is doing and depending on how it's interacting with the different characters or the different enemies, it's going to change the music. Which I also think is one of the huge selling points for this game is the music itself while we're doing the speedrun. But with that, as you can see here, we're going to be confronting 2 main enemies right off the bat in this first level. The regular guys with just the standard guns, but also there are these guys in blue vests, the bigger guys that weigh a bit more, and they are the shotgun enemies that kind of just spray a load of bullets at you. They're much harder to avoid, however, they still can miss you in certain cases. But in this next section, 1, 2, we're going to be introduced to a third enemy, and that is the bomb guys. Boom. The bomb guys just explode immediately on impact. Their explosion will kill you in 1 hit, and one of the easiest ways to die in this game, including during the speedrun, is actually pushing a bomb guy into a wall and then being too close to the bomb guy so that you're still in radius of his explosion, and the explosion will just kill you in 1 hit and you will have to start the level over. Dying in this game isn't an immediate reset, even though like a lot of the higher level stuff in this game is deathless throughout the run. Depending on where you die, depending on how early in the level you die, if you die in 1 hit or if you die throughout 3 hit points, like 3 different enemies hitting you with just the guns, then it'll all depend on how, like, all of that depends on how detrimental your run, how detrimental the time loss is in your run. So just because you die once doesn't mean you immediately have to reset. There have definitely been top times with 1 or 2 deaths before. So with this next level, as you can see here, one of the things that really gets us having fast times is that there it's very hard to get a seed that just goes straight from left to right. There's not a lot of up and down movement. We want as little up and down movement as possible, but unfortunately, sometimes the game just likes to give us obstacles in which we have to go all the way up to the top of the screen and back down, or something similar to that extent, in order to just avoid as many enemies, in order to just like try and confront as many enemies as possible. And one thing that is hard to do in this game and hard to master is realizing exactly when you should be confronting enemies, because every time you push an enemy into a wall or into another enemy, you will lose a bit of your momentum that you're carrying up as you walk. That push animation will always make you lose your momentum, and even though it's done once or twice, that's not really that big of a deal. But progressively, as it goes out throughout the entire level, those different moments in which you are losing your momentum, it's going to be adding up throughout the entire run. And so little moments like that will make the difference between a 25-minute time or a 26-minute time. It really can, along with just, better RNG and better enemy placements. But anyway, right here we're in this dark area when 1-5. Right, and in this dark area that we're gonna see between 1-5 through 1-7, the enemies will always react faster. They tend to react faster in the dark. However, they will only react. They will only see you if you're either in their little cone of light from their flashlight. And with that, there is an exception to that. One enemy that we are going to see in Album 3 that does not react faster when you're in the dark. It can be very annoying at times because, usually when you are confronting an enemy, you can actually just push them. If they're like looking at you, you can actually just push them before they shoot you. But in this dark area, you don't really have the time to do that. By the time you walk, if they notice you, by the time you walk up to them, they're just going to shoot you. And it's very hard to avoid them once they notice you, is the problem. But luckily in 1-7 we are out of this dark area. We do tend to avoid these enemies coming out of these elevators here. But we do have some columns and barriers on the sides that allow us to avoid them a bit easily. But with that, there's not a lot to be said about the rest of Album 1. Again, it's more just improvisation and reacting to enemies. And one thing that I always mention is that you need to be careful to choose your battles when you're doing this. Also, one thing that I'm forgetting to mention is that in those level transitions, you can see that I'm walking sideways. And the reason I'm doing that is because in Ape Out, when you walk towards a wall, you be pushed away, and then when you walk towards a wall and at a specific angle, you are going to be pushed away and also pushed forward. And those level transition hallways are the perfect length. Though, if we turn the ape at like a 45-degree angle to the top right, as we move forward, we're going to be seeing him. We're going to be seeing him being pushed forward to the right and also pushed away from the wall. And using that in those little hallway transitions are going to help us move a bit faster. And those small little times, they add up throughout the run. But anyway, we're in this last hallway of Album 1, and as we're going through here, I do want to mention that each level has like its own little theme. In this first level, we were in a laboratory, and this next level, we're going to be in a high-rise. This next level is Album 2, and I just wanted to mention this one glitch that I'm going to be performing here that I actually wouldn't perform in the marathon itself. It's a 10-second time save, so essentially during this loading screen, immediately after you hit start on the album cover, you're going to hold down right trigger, and there's a small portion in that loading screen where the game is actually still reading your inputs. And with that, you are able to hold down R, which is the push button, and push that first guy out of the window immediately. And with that, you can actually skip that first cutscene. However, there is a little bit of a caveat to that, and which is why it's not a marathon safe trick. And that catch is that if you perform that glitch and die within the first half of the level, within the first 4 levels essentially on side A, you will soft lock the game. You are no longer able to move. You can't exit the menu. You are completely soft locked out of the game. But luckily, with enough practice, you were able to trust yourself to not die. However, it's not a trick that I would perform in the marathon setting, primarily because even the best of players can get bad RNG, bad enemy placements, and just die in this one, and no one wants to see a soft lock game. And with that, we also have the introduction of 2 other characters, or 2 other enemy types in this level, which is the Melvins, the little green-haired guys, and the SWAT members, which are the ones coming out of the windows. The SWAT members will act a lot like the shotgun guys, in which case they are bigger and they are harder to push, and they will not die if you push them into like a smaller enemy. They can only die if you push them into another SWAT member or another shotgun guy or into a wall. But the shotgun guys just kind of spray and pray bullets. They don't have like one single fan of bullets that like the shotgun guys do. and they tend to have bad aim, so they're not much of a threat. However, the Melvins are probably the most annoying characters in this game, in my opinion. And the reason that I say that is primarily because the Melvins, they when you run away from them, when you run towards them, they will run away from you. But if you run away from them, they will run towards you. And in that running away from them, they will run towards you, and they will also like try and just they will also try and shoot you. And they tend to have fast aim and also really good aim. And that is very disappointing. However, on this next area, once we cross over that bridge, we also get the introduction to another enemy type, which is the snipers. You saw their little red lines in the other building. However, here we have to be up close and personal with them, and they're also not much of a threat, primarily because they're very slow. And like you can walk up to them, they can see you from the other side of the room, and as long as you can break that line of sight between you and them, even for just a split second, you can actually walk up to the snipers, and there's a very high chance that you'll be able to shoot, just push them into a wall before they are able to shoot you. However, you want to be careful because they can actually see you from, I think, the complete other side of the level. I don't exactly know what their distance is, but it's so much larger than all the other enemies in this game. They're able to see you from the other side of the room. Meanwhile, the other enemies will only be able to see you once you get on the screen with them. Circle back. This is the last little portion where we're going to be in this other building right here. And we're going to circle back up to the first building in floor 9. We're going to go straight up. And here we're going to see, we're going to go back up into this little area. And the one thing that I did want to mention is that we actually skipped both of the potential crash sections in this level. For some reason, in the two transition levels, the two transition areas between 2.4 and 2.5, which is side A and side B, the game can just suddenly crash, and also it can crash between 2.6 and 2.7. And the reason that there's not really any reason behind those crashes. They happen randomly. I don't really have them happen very often, but they can happen pretty randomly. And with that, we don't really have any penalty for that. You can keep the timer going, you can keep the run going, while we blame you for something that's out of your control. And so with that, we want to be very careful in this last section of 2.8, primarily because we're going to be going to the lobby at the very end of this area, and the lobby is a wide open space, and wide open spaces in this game are no one's friend. When you have a wide open space, you want to kind of stick to the bottom or top of that wide open space in order to stick towards the walls and have some kind of cover from enemies, because it's very hard to just go straight through without encountering a bunch of enemies and having zero to no cover. Having little to no cover in order to hide from them. However, sticking to these walls back here, you are able to sit a bit closer to these tables and interact with enemies better. And if enemies are next to you, as the wall next to the wall, you can actually just push them into the wall and not have to deal with them as much. We did die here twice in my PB, so we have a minute and 13 seconds ahead. But that is the end of album 2. Here we have the beginning of album 3. Longer cutscenes in this game. Album 3 is very hard because the entire B side and also certain sections of the A side have once again wide open spaces. But we also get introduced to 2 other enemies in this level that I'll mention once we encounter them. One thing that I did want to mention here is that again, the primary thing that people need to focus about in this game when it comes to getting good is just learning when to fight enemies and when to not fight enemies, because as you can see here, there is a whole heckin' lot of enemies. Album 3 tends to take enemies in packs like that right there, which can be very annoying, very satisfying because you just kill a bunch of them at the same time, but it can be very annoying because you're losing your momentum by constantly pushing enemies against the walls, and these are very hard to deal with. You want to, because taking care of enemies wastes time. However, not taking care of enemies and then being shot at and then dying because you got shot 3 times wastes even more time. So you want to play a bit aggressively so you don't have to deal with as many enemies, but not too aggressively to the point where you're being reckless. And it's stuff like that. You really need to learn how to choose your battles in this game and learn how to like cleverly try and take cover from enemies like that. And with that, we're just kind of trying staying to the top of this section in 3-2 as we deal with these enemies. One of the enemies that I forgot to mention was the machine gun guys. They work similarly to the SWAT members in Album 2. They kind of just spray and pray bullets sporadically around you. But they're not much of a threat. And we're going to go into an In the Dark section later, and those are the enemies that I mentioned earlier that do not react faster in the dark. And I feel like that's an intentional choice. However, right here, we're going to go to a wide open space over here in 3-3, red alert. Right here, we're just going to make sure that we are sticking to the bottom of the area here, so that we can have these little columns as cover when necessary. You want to be very careful about entering the fire area, primarily because mostly because like when you get shot, you have a little bit of invincibility frames before you can get shot again. However, that does not apply to fire. So if you get shot and kind of pushed into a fire, you will immediately take 2 damage, and that's no fun at all. You can technically butt slide in the middle of these hallways right here, like we did in Album 1. That's what that trick is called, where you like walk sideways in the hallways. However, since these hallways are a bit bigger than we normally want them to be, it can be very difficult to butt slide. However, it has around 5 seconds of time save there. But as we can see, we're in the dark section, and the machine gun guys will not react faster. Again, I do think that's an intentional choice, primarily because it can be very hard to deal with the enemies like that. When they react faster, like you want to kill the enemy by walking up to them, but if they were to react faster, the machine gun guys could probably like spray 2 or 3 bullets in you before you can even walk up to them. But that is the end of side A for Album 3. Now it's up to side B. Side B is a very easy part of the game to die in, because you are going to go outside, and outside is another wide open space. But with that, we're going to go to fire in the hole. We're going to stay in this little dark area for the first few seconds of this. But once we get to the end of this dark section, we're just going to crank open this door and we're going to go outside. One thing that I forgot to mention about the doors is that whenever you open a door in this game, when you're ever like pulling on the handles of the doors have 4 ticks that they use in order to signify when the door is supposed to open. So you're supposed to like tick, 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 and then the 4th tick is always delayed. The 4th tick is always delayed. However, if you want to get rid of that delay, all you have to do is let go of the door and re-grab it. And since there's a lot of doors you're going to open in this game, especially in Album 1 and Album 4, it's essential that you learn those type of tricks to have those little free time saves add up throughout the run. And I'll mention a bit more about that trick once we get into Album 4. We're going to see more door openings. But right here in Album 3, we get the introduction to a new enemy called the Flamethrower guys. And the Flamethrower guys are the easiest enemy to deal with in this game. As long as you're not within range of their Flamethrower, they will be of 0 threat to you. And as you can see, I was in range of the Flamethrower, and they're very easy to deal with because they move very slowly, and as long as you move faster than them, you just keep moving and don't really move towards them. You can just immediately avoid their flamethrowers and not have to deal with it. However, one viable strat that you can do if you're really advanced in this game and you trust yourself not to get shot or die, is that you can actually push a flamethrower guy, and when you push a flamethrower guy, it'll explode and create a fire. And with that fire, you are able to walk into it and burn yourself. It'll take away 1 hit point, but the benefit of that is that when you are on fire, all the enemies will run away from you. And in running away from you, you are able to have a clear shot to where you want to go, kind of just a beeline past them. It's a hard strat to pull off. It can theoretically save a good amount of time, especially if you have like a bad seed with a bunch of enemies. But it's very hard to pull off and not get shot at the same time. Here in 3.8, we have the introduction to bombs. The bombs will just land. They have a timer on them, but they will land just in your pathway and in slightly random locations. But the bombs go on a timer. However, the hardest thing about the bombs is that sometimes enemies can shoot a bomb, or you can push an enemy into a bomb, and both of those things will cause a bomb to explode. And if you're within range of the bomb, it will just kill you in one hit. But that is the end of Album 3. One thing that Album 3 loves to do inside B is just give you a bunch of shotgun enemies, in packs, and they're very hard to deal with. But luckily, we were able to circumvent a lot of the problems that Album 3 gave us. But with that, we're in Album 4. This, as I said before, each album has its own theme. At first, we were in a laboratory, then a high-rise, then a military then a military base, and now we're in a Madagascar situation where we get shot in the butt with a tranquilizer dart, and now we're on a ship in a container. But with that, we are actually going to be introduced to a new mechanic, which is the container mechanic. Boom. As you can see, there are these little containers throughout the level, and in these containers, you are able to go into them. And if you go into them, the music changes for a bit, but that's not the important part. The important part is that they act as some kind of cover from enemies. However, along with being a mode of cover, when you go into a container that has doors on the other side, the doors will as you exit, the doors will just fly open, and any enemy behind that door will immediately just die from the sheer swing of the doors. That is 4.1. One thing that I want to mention about 4.2 is that, as you can see here, the lights will just go out in random intervals. But the thing about this dark sequence is that the enemies don't have flashlights, and that can be very beneficial or very detrimental to your run depending on how the RNG is. Because the enemies don't have flashlights, when the lights go out, they will just start shooting in random directions. They can shoot other enemies, or they could accidentally shoot you, or they could shoot a bomb enemy that you are next to, and then the bomb enemy will explode and immediately kill you in one hit. So it's really all about, that's another layer of RNG. There's a lot of RNG elements in this game. However, there's fortunately a lot of different skills and techniques that you can use and develop throughout speedrunning this game in order to kind of circumvent a lot of the RNG, a lot of the bad RNG factors this game gives you. And one thing that we see here is the first death and the only death of this run, the only major mistake that I really made in this run, which was just primarily because I was packed with a bunch of enemies, and this 4.3 is probably the hardest level of A side because of that exact thing. The enemies just kind of like to pack together, especially the Melvins. As we can see here, the developers were just like, hey, let's put the most annoying enemy in the game and let's put it in packs, and then let's put it in really closed quarters like this. And so it can be very harmful to your run. 4.3 is very difficult to master, very difficult to not die in. I actually got a deathless run immediately after this, but unfortunately it was 1 second behind my PB purely due to like really bad RNG, and that just goes to show how important RNG aspect is. You want good layouts, you want good enemies. We actually triggered a little bit of a glitch here, I suppose, where you get shot around the same frame that the level transition occurs, and so the music will just keep going. However, that is the end of album for A side. Interestingly enough, that is the only side in which there's 3 levels instead of 4. But in 4.4, we're actually going to restart level right here, and now we are invincible. Yay! Well, we're not really invincible. The reason that I say we're invincible is that it's really hard to die. Now, you can and will get shot, but however, during that little cutscene at the beginning, there was supposed to be a explosion. However, when the enemies appear on the other side of the door, the explosion is then supposed to happen. However, instead of making it a special non-lethal explosion, in which the explosion just simply doesn't kill you, the developers instead decided to give the ape 99 health in that specific instance, and then give him back the health once the explosion happened. Give him back the 3 health once the explosion happened. But because if you restart while you still have 99 health, you can actually keep that 99 health for the next 3 levels. So for 4, 4, 4, 5, and 4, 6. One thing that I want to mention here as well is the introduction of the final enemy in this game, which is the bazooka guys. The bazooka guys are meant to kill you in 1 hit. Any kind of explosion in this game is meant to kill you in 1 hit. The actual properties for the explosion is that each explosion does 10 HP. 10 HP of damage. However, since you only have 3 HP originally, they will just kill you in 1 hit. But since we have this glitch on, we can actually get it shot by them around 7 or 8 times and still be completely fine. You still want to be careful because you do rack up hit points. You rack up damage from the other enemies in this game. Right here, we're seeing more butt sliding. And being shot by the bazooka guys is actually being beneficial as well as being shot by all the other enemies, because when you get shot by the enemies in this game, you get a bit of a boost over your character does get a bit of a boost. Especially with the bazooka guys, it will boost you forward a lot, and so being shot by one of them every now and again can be very beneficial. But you may want to make sure you're not overdoing, you're not being shot by them too much, because otherwise you're going to die. I have had it where you get shot at the bazooka enemies to die, and you just kind of rack up 9 hit points of damage. But that is 4-6. Right here, we're gonna go into the final level of the game, 4-7. In that last level, it's also easy to push a flamethrower guy and use his flames to kind of clear your way through. But anyway, 4-7, we actually get introduced to another enemy in this game, and it's called the tranquilizer guys. The tranquilizer guys will not kill you. They cannot kill you. However, if they shoot you with their tranquilizer darts, the screen will have a bunch of inverted colors and it'll go crazy. And so it'll just distort your vision and slow you down. However, you can also see that we can free some of the animals in this zoo that we've been captured in. And in this zoo, the animals can kill other enemies if we break them free, and the enemies will also use the animals as different targets in order to distract them, so you can just keep going through. So while in most cases freeing the animals can be a bit slow, it can also be beneficial if you use it right. So that is the end of the game. 3, 2, 1, time. Time happens right at that title sequence, and we get introduced to the most amazing ending song in one of the most amazing ending songs in gaming history, of this nice, wonderful jazz blaring as you exit the level through a giant. Beforehand, you had like a giant drum solo, and just to end the game with this beautiful jazz and this the blaring sax as you finally finished a run, as you finally got a PB. It is incredibly satisfying. It totally makes it worth keeping the grind of this game, this song alone. However, that has been about Warpless. There is probably 1 or 2 things that I forgot to mention, only because I wanted to just keep talking and try and fit in as much stuff as I could about this game. But obviously I'm going to have a bit of commentary with me in order to help me fit in some more stuff. So I don't have to talk the entire time, but I do have some incentive for this game if GDQ were to accept it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm hoping that you can consider Ape Out Warpless for this wonderful marathon. It has never been at a GDQ event before. However, it has been the ad on the GDQ at the bottom left screen as another run has been going on. So I wanted to step into the spotlight and be more than just an ad. And so with that, I don't really think I have much else to say. I'm trying to think of something, but I can't think of anything. But with that, my name is Osmorn, And this has been APAT Warpless. I hope you can consider it. It's a wonderful run. Not many people run it, and I want to get it exposed to a large audience so that more people can be interested in running it themselves. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.